Hello and good afternoon, grappling fans. Happy Friday to you all out there. I hope you're getting through the week all right. It's Chase and Michael back again with Who's Number One, fifth show of the week. It's been a wild week for us here in the studio. We hope you guys are staying safe at home and at least somewhat entertained by what's going on. Today we have another special guest joining us, two special guests that is. We have Lachlan and Livia Giles calling all the way in from Australia where they are currently quarantined and restricted to their homes. We also have our regular co-host Bear from Showy Roll and Ricardo Amendolia on the call. Lachlan and Livia, how are things going, guys? How are you guys doing down there in quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long this is going to... Well, we got 14 days, but what I'm worried about is we get out of this and then it happens again. For the nation. We got quarantined because anyone coming from an international... We came from New Zealand back to Australia, and that's why anyone coming from international has to now mandatory 14 days isolation.
So this is day 6, I think. I don't even know.
It might be 5.
No, it's day 6.
Really?
Yeah.
6?
The girls are counting for me. Yeah.
Okay.
But we got some meds delivered to home and plenty of food, so I don't know. We just...
What's funny is we went from a country that has less cases per capita back to Australia, and we have to be quarantined. We got more chance of catching it if we had just been here. Anyway.
You were just mentioning there before we went live. You were actually in Italy, but right when this all started kind of becoming a global nightmare. What was going on there, and what happened there?
So we're doing a European seminar tour. We were in Dubai and then Istanbul. And when we got to Istanbul, I don't know. I'd been reading this coronavirus stuff, and I was kind of like, I felt like I was being like a conspiracy theorist. I was like, this looks bad, but I was like, no one seemed to care at all. So I was like, I'm not going to really say anything.
I mean, we have a friend Kamal who's
he's
a partner owner of Absolute in Shanghai. So we've been getting updates from Shanghai from like early January, probably, right?
Yeah, his gym shut got forcibly shut in January, and I was like, oh geez, this must. And I saw all the videos coming out of China, and I was like, something doesn't look right about this. So then when we got to, I think when we were in Istanbul, like we saw some news thing saying that Milan had a bunch of people died in hospital in Milan from it or something, and I'm like, should we go to Milan?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure, and shout out to Milanimal, like they've been great with all these. They had to shut last minute, but we were sort of saying like, should we go? How's the situation looking? And they said, no, it's not that bad. Come down. And literally 5 hours later, we got a message saying, don't come, just cancel all the trips to Milan. That is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that. I mean, obviously we're pretty young. Our chance of having a serious side effect from it would be pretty low. But one of the worst things I think you could do would be run seminars around the world with sometimes 80 people in the event when you've got coronavirus and literally spread it around the world. So we were quite happy to avoid that particular seminar. Yeah, it was crazy. It felt like it was chasing us. So maybe we did spread it. Maybe we did have it.
No, we don't have it.
We did. No, I assume we did. Yeah, because we went Italy, then Spain, then France, then Austria, and I think all those countries are now in a bit of trouble. So, as is the rest of the world.
So to clear it up for people, you guys, like a lot of people in America are just like saying they're quarantined, but they're just really just staying home from work. You guys are officially like government ordered to stay in your house, correct?
Yeah, so there's if you break this quarantine, it's like a $25,000 fine.
Yeah,
or
I think
something
so.
like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
You kind of, I hope.
I mean,
no one's enforcing it. I don't think there's meant to be doing home visits, like the government's meant to come and make sure you're at home. But yeah,
I doubt they'll do that. I think what's going to happen is if someone is found to have been breaking it and they had it and they infected someone, they would get fined for sure. But I mean, I don't know how they're enforcing it, but anyway.
So when
we
you
got
guys
some home mats now, so we're good.
When you guys arrived back, how did it work? Were they just like, all right, go home and don't leave your house? Or I was wondering how that worked.
Yeah, it's weird because they don't really give you any advice. You're like, what? So do we walk home or what do you?
But we have to get on a bus. I mean, they do give us advice. Like they meet you as soon as you walk out of the plane, and they give you, papers, and you have to sign that you understand that you're meant to be quarantined. But to get home, I think the advice was try to not catch public transport, and if you catch an Uber, you have to sit at the back. It's not great, especially if you're infected and coming in, but I guess there's no other way of getting home, so yeah.
All right, so what are you guys up to if you haven't left the house for 5 or 6 days? What are you guys doing to pass the time while you're in there?
Jiu-jitsu and going crazy. I got Red Dead Redemption 2, so I've started playing that. Been doing.
I mean, in fairness, our Gym Absolute, we shut it down last week. So we were, I don't know, I think the first club in Australia, or at least Victoria, to shut down as a preemptive measure, because we didn't want to put any of our members at risk or ourselves. So we've actually had a lot of work to do in like filming online content for our members and trying to devise strategies to keep our business afloat with our business partners. So that's been keeping us pretty busy. And apart from that, we've just been trying to drill and roll, if you can call me a new rolling. It's more like Lockie sits on me and yeah. it's fun.
I haven't lost yet.
Yeah, he hasn't lost. He lets me start in top of side control, and then when he gets bored, he just okay, off you go. But it's been great. We've been working more heel hooks. That's probably the only thing we can do really well together. What else have we been doing? Cooking?
I haven't been cooking.
No, you've been eating.
Yeah.
Not a terrible arrangement.
You did make me toast once.
I made a toast, yeah, with Vegemite on toast. I don't know if you guys have tried that. But.
No, I never had. I've only heard of it in the Down Under song, actually. So, how much mat space do you guys have over there?
Well, we vastly overestimated how much space we had. We just fit a 3x3 meter mat in. I don't know what that is in feet.
No idea.
What is it? 3 feet per meter. It's probably like 9 feet by 9 feet.
Let me check.
10 by 10.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's about 10 by 10. Yeah, it's pretty good size.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Well, I mean, we had to remove our couch and
and the non-essentials, So now, we can lie on the mat and do work and train and whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of gets us up to speed there with the coronavirus situation. But obviously, you want to look back a little bit to some happier times. Lachlan, of course, you're known as the People's Champ, I think widely called that, for your pretty insane absolute run there at ADCC. It's been several months now. I know you've done some interviews about it, but what kind of feelings do you get looking back at that moment in your life and in your competition career?
Oh, I mean, it's. I don't think looking back, how I feel about it, I don't think that's changed too much. I still feel it's I don't know, the amount of time I put into being an elite competitor, going to Worlds every year and going to all these big tournaments, and most of the large international tournaments, not being able to get as good of a result as I'd like. I think as I said, 2017 Nogi Worlds, I had bronze, which I was happy with. But to have a performance and a result like that, which I think is a once in a lifetime sort of thing. I don't think you see something like that happen too often. So for that to happen to me at especially at this late in my career, I think was just incredible. So yeah. I still don't believe that it happened, but it did.
We had Craig on the show, on different show, but same studio here at Fistful of Callers, and he was saying when he was watching the event live and that you've submitted Kainan, that's when he already knew that you could maybe go all the way with it, or
because that's the over 99 champ right there.
Right.
Tap. So yeah.
Did you have that same feeling of confidence? Like you heel hook Kainan, the guy who just took gold in over 99, or was it just like a oh shit, I'm still going moment?
It was a bit like, oh shit, all right. Like it was a weird feeling because like I'd submitted Kainan and I was obviously extremely happy, and then I was like, oh, all right, who's the next giant? Like who might have to find now because they're all. But I was that next match I was lucky because Gaudio was he was exhausted. Yeah, like they gave him enough time to recover to be able to fight. But I know from having been in that state before myself, like if you're that tired, you're going to come into your next match like with the aim of conserving energy. So just seeing him, he was kind of lying on the ground for a while, and I was like, okay, he's probably not going to come at me really hard. He's going to be more patient. But that's kind of gives you a bit of confidence when you're going against someone really big that they're not going to come and directly out the bat and try and just go power against you. So yeah, so I had like not confidence in that. Like I wasn't, as I said, I wasn't going into those matches thinking, yes, I'm going to win this. But I knew the avenue I had, potential to win was with the leg locks and the leg lock entries I'd been working. So that's what I stuck to.
You got to think, looking back on it, you got to think, man, thank God I jumped in the absolute, right? Like if you didn't do the absolute,
I remember it. Yeah. I think it was after a beer and then Mo talking to me that convinced me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. So,
yeah. So, how did that work out? How did you end up getting into the absolute bracket? Then walk us through that situation a little bit.
Because obviously that we had our division the day before, and I was obviously unhappy with my performance in that. So we were just down at the bar having a beer,
drowning our sorrows.
Yeah, having a beer, drowning our sorrows. And Mo was at the table across from us, and at some point he turned around and he's like, "You doing the absolute tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." He's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just don't want to fight someone like Bushesha who's gonna like potentially break me." And he's like, "Oh, we won't give you Bushesha." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." I was like, "All right, I'll probably do it," And then they gave me Kainan, which as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Yeah, thanks." Like that's so much better.
But he did say, he's like, "I didn't give you Bushesha."
Yeah.
So pretty sure Lucas Lepre just walked past and said, like, "Good luck, man."
Yeah.
He's like, "What are you doing?"
Hey Ricardo, you were starting to say something over there. What's on your mind, brother? How you doing?
Yeah, hey Lachlan, Ricardo here. I was one of the commentators in your match with Kainan, and I will forever remember that match because I was like, yeah, Kainan doesn't seem to be in any trouble. Oh shit, he just tapped. And I had no idea. And for me, like watching, it was so nonchalant, like what you were, like your setup, that I couldn't see the danger from where I was. So my question to you is that, obviously you're fighting Kainan, he just beat Bushesha, but when you were fighting him, when you were in those positions, did you kind of get the feeling like, maybe he's not familiar with what you were trying to do? Did you have that confidence when you're about to do it? Because I couldn't, like I said, we had no idea what was going on. We were like, yeah, Kainan's in no danger. Oh, and he gets submitted, so you fooled us. I'll tell you that much.
Do you want to watch it first? Let's play it real quick. Caleb, if you could cue that up.
Yeah. The finish this is the finish? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if can we pause or is it?
Yeah. Just tell the whenever you want to pause it. Just tell the producer stop it, play it back, whatever. Yeah.
So if you pause here, because let's go back a moment, if we can. Yeah.
Here.
So you see here, but this is where, I feel like my styles of leg locks that I'd been working was a bit different to what was currently being practiced. So I think Kainan probably didn't expect it. I think, to be honest, most of the people I fought hadn't expected whether or not you expect it. I think you need to. It's not about whether you expect something. You need to have trained with someone who's like kind of doing that style, so you get a feel for like what points it's dangerous and you need to be defending, and what points you can keep pressuring forward and so on. So, so if you look here, Kainan's got his right shin jammed in. I've got his left leg trap, but his right shin is jammed behind my leg. So, I mean, it's definitely not ideal positioning for me, but I still have a chance to like work for the leg. And I assume because he's got his knees together and his right leg jammed in, he feels like any danger of a leg lock, he can just free himself from by kind of pushing with his right leg. Yeah, I'd say he probably did not feel very threatened at all right now. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that foot down into my towards the ground here, and even here he's still got his leg in. I might have to go back a moment. Sorry.
Yeah, they'll just keep playing it through.
Yeah, he as I push his foot to the ground, he's still got his other leg in front, kind of blocking me here. Yeah, so he's still got his right leg in, but once his foot's on the ground, I change my hand to his knee so he can no longer retract his. If you watch my right hand, I hold his knee. He can't pull his leg out now, so I can lift my hips, catch the heel, and then I connect. Once I connect my hands, I know I can start like throwing my legs over to 50-50 to finish. So this is it's not ideal positioning for me, if that makes sense. Like, but it's somewhere you can catch the heel, especially if someone's defending well. So I mean, I actually think Kainan did a very good. I think out of everyone I fought in ADCC, Kainan actually did the best leg lock defense. I felt he almost took my back off my first entry. He was trying to, I think because he's a big guy, but he plays a little guy's game. He was actually trying to like counter me in those sort of crab ride sort of battles and so on. So I actually think he did quite a good job of defending. It's just at that moment there was a slight gap to catch the heel.
Hey, Lachlan, I had a question for you on that sequence. This is Vince. I'm one of the probably 700 gi companies that hit you up for sponsorship right after you beat up every single heavyweight in the entire world. So it's a pleasure to have you on, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No, but the question was, I just saw right now, like going through the sequence, I noticed that you're playing a lot more open with your legs. So other people are kind of like tangling and, or they're kind of triangling the leg, but it seems like you're playing a little bit more open so it feels like the person can get out a little bit. And then once you kind of get your hand synced, then you're throwing the leg over. Is that like a part of your strategy and game and style, as opposed to like the traditional like 50-50 tangle or closing up their legs?
Yeah, I think so. So I think the standard has been to, which is very commonly taught, which is a good way to do it, but has been to get like what I call proximal control, like which means like attaching yourself essentially to their hips and locking in with your legs, and then try and kind of separate the legs or whatever you need to do to catch the heel, which works quite well. But I mean, if you look at the shape of the foot, it's like this. Yeah, if you look at the shape of the foot, like if you can kind of clamp in on that can stop them from being able to retract their leg, or if you can like fold their knee over your knee, for example, like this, and now Liv can't escape. So that's one of the ones I used against Kainan there. So by catching the end of the leg, I call that distal control. I'm using physio terms here, but like by catching the end of the leg and having a good secure control over that, you can catch the heel. They cannot escape, and then you can shoot your legs in second. So I use both avenues, and both are effective. I think the latter, the one that you're describing, is something that was probably much less practice, because you feel less. You feel like you've got less control until you develop the sensitivity for that. I think. So, again, I don't claim to have made anything up really in my leg lock system. Like there's other people doing variants of this stuff that's quite similar to mine. I'd say my focus is probably a lot more on that than perhaps other people do.
Yeah. Something I'd like.
No, but I think that sequence. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, fine.
No, it just seems like the sequence is super unique.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was just saying that you thought that your style was a little bit different than the leg lock style people were preparing for going into ADCC, correct? Didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you think like
Generally,
your entry there, spinning around the back that you used, is a little bit different than how people were getting into the legs by going underneath from the inside control, right? Do you think that caught people a little bit off guard?
Absolutely, yeah. So my entries came from once I realized that I thought 50-50, and I still believe 50-50 is the best. 50-50 and some of the variants that I go through, to me, are the, at least from my perspective, are the best leg attack in terms of heel hook position. Once I kind of had come to that conclusion, I started to look at how to get to 50-50, and I thought who better to study than the Meow brothers, because they are just excellent at that. So much of their game is entering into 50-50, and one thing I noticed is they're getting there, but by putting their feet on the outside. So everyone else in the leg lock world seemed to be putting butterfly hooks or single leg X going like between the legs and then trying to separate them. But the Meows are going like put on the outside and using what we call K guard to get into 50-50. Now the Meows don't use so many heel hooks, but they're using it to get into the leg entanglements. So once I saw that, I said, okay, well, that seems to fit well into the leg entanglements I want. So I started playing with that a lot, and it's weird because I actually didn't try that strategy in my own weight division. It had been working well. I tried something slightly different in my own weight division, but it had been working well for me in the gym. So I thought, why not? It's good to. I think there's a good message for people. But if whatever's working for you in the gym, make sure you take that to. You should get confidence in that. It's something I hadn't really been able to display too much in the competition scene, but yeah.
So before we move on to another one, I wanted to ask you, because like you said, you had a tough draw. You had the 99+ champion in your first round match. What are you thinking? What were you thinking going out there? Are you thinking like, I'm just going to let it go and whatever happens, happens? And what did you think after you got the heel hook? What went through your mind before and after the match with this one?
Before, part of me was thinking, all right, I want to try to get, I knew I had to try and get to the legs to get the heel hook. And the other part was thinking, don't get injured. I think like, you got to play like somewhat of a balled up game. If you're against someone bigger like that, you always got to have your limbs in a position where if someone just suddenly sprawls or something, that it's not going to break your leg. I think like I've been training jiu-jitsu 17 years, so I probably know enough on how to like position my body that if someone kind of does some unexpected movement, I should be okay. But it's still like when you're going against someone like that, they can put you in positions where that you're not expecting. So but I mean, I was basically just thinking, okay, I'm almost certainly not going to be taking Kainan down and passing his guard and taking his back and choking him. My strategy is going to be get to the legs and get the finish. I'll try that.
And then when you get the heel hook, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I don't think I know what I was thinking. If you look at the photo, I'm kind of sort of looking up, going, I've got my hand up. My first thing was like, I think because one of the reasons why I did it is Mo did say that I get more chance of getting an invite back to ADCC if I enter the open weight. So one of my first thoughts was, I think this might be enough.
I don't have to do trials again.
I think I get my invite because the trials is always a stressful experience. So yeah.
And you have to fight your students. It's not the best thing.
Ricardo, you got anything to add about this? You got any questions?
Yeah, not trying to stray too far from the, going to the next clip into the bracket, but I always wanted to know, like, you kind of touched on it. You mentioned how your style is a bit different, especially like getting your leg to the outside. Would you say that, that's because you also like teach, train, and compete in the gi as well? Because I mean, from my understanding, I see you do some gi stuff still, although you made your name huge in ADCC, right? But I mean, from what I understand, you still compete in the gi. Like, is that style come from that? And that's like, it's like a two-part question. And I honestly don't understand like your background in the leg lock game? Can you go into that as well, and kind of all in one answer there?
Well, I actually have a pretty well-rounded guard. I mean, I say well-rounded. To be honest, they don't always link that well, but I throughout my black belt career, so probably the last 7 years, you could find clips from certain times, like where half guard was my A game, and I still really like half guard. I can play single X. Like if you watch, I had a match with Edwin Najmi maybe 4 or 5 years ago where I was playing a lot of single leg X and using that as my main game, and that probably the fact that I was playing single leg X, I think opened me up to getting into leg entanglements pretty well. So once I started to learn the heel hook game, I kind of felt that was a pretty easy transition from playing single X to going into kind of the outside heel hook style game. I've played berimbolo. I think when I first got my black belt, I was a berimbolo guy actually.
You were also a spider guard guy for like.
I used to play spider guard. Yeah, I've kind of and probably each of these I've had that as my main kind of strategy as a black belt, which I mean it's probably to my detriment, because I think you actually you're better off just choosing one thing and sticking with it for a long time. I kind of find that boring, but so I've got a pretty broad game here. That said, this K guard was relatively new to me. I probably within the last year since I started really focusing on that meow style K guard entry. I took that, worked it a lot, and that, so pretty much everything you see here, if you see in that match, like if you went and watched me roll 1 year earlier, you wouldn't have seen any of those.
Pretty quick
entries.
Transition. I think you were watching the meows, and then the next day we tried it at training, and then we spent like 6 weeks working it. I think it happened it just fit into the game really quick. I think for the Euro trials, I changed my entire game, I think 10 days before the trials, and then I used it in the trials and it worked. I don't know.
That was probably a bit too. Yeah. So,
hey, Lachlan, you have to excuse Ricardo. He what he wants you to say is that that the gi has made your no-gi game, and the rest of the their no-gi game amazing.
Sorry, I didn't even answer.
Everybody should train in the gi to have amazing heels. That's what he really wanted to ask you. So I apologize.
No, well, I mean, I think if you look at the gi like the guard strategies that the top gi guys are playing, generally at the lighter weight divisions, it's like a lot of the guys are playing off their back, and like pummeling and looking for like leg entanglements from their back. Like you generally, like it's like a De La Riva and foot on the outside position game, more so than a butterfly type game. And I personally believe that is a stronger way to play to prevent guard passes. So I think when you go feet on the inside, you're obviously like there might be more chance at getting into like a position like single X, but you also are like you're giving away a layer of your guard. You're now letting your opponent get past the line of your foot. So it's now like they're at kind of they've got to look to clear your knee line or get underhooks, and you're in trouble. If your feet are on the outside and they get an underhook, it's not such a big deal. So I think that guard style, for example, that the meows play is a harder style of guard to pass if you're very adept at it, compared to if you're very adept at a butterfly seated guard style. So I kind of always thought that. I don't know, copies dripping on the mat. Sorry. I kind of always thought that, but I saw this thing where when you play your feet on the outside, you risk the person on top, like going for a guard pass and then sitting back for a leg lock. And so that's then kind of, you see a few people that used to play outside, and I mean, me too, like I kind of stopped playing De La Riva in no-gi, and I would start always putting my feet on the inside to try and protect my legs at first. But I think once you get confident enough in how to defend leg locks, you don't really get so concerned about someone trying to attack your legs from a foot on the outside position. And once you develop that confidence, you can continue to do what I think is the more I think overall it's a more effective strategy of guard to play, which is on your back and pummeling. But that said, there is some requirements for that, which is a bit of if you don't have like a certain baseline level of flexibility, playing off your back, you're probably going to get past easier. Once you have like this baseline level of flexibility, you can and good guard retention skills, I think it becomes harder to pass your guard. So obviously it's a body type thing. Some people who are more stiff and so on might be better off playing with feet on the inside. But I think overall feet on the outside is a better strategy for someone who's got the attributes to do it. And I think you see that, how many of the people below lightweight, in the IBGF comps will play on with their feet on the inside compared to outside. It's almost always on the outside, like with De La Riva and these K-guard entries and so on. So,
and I think in terms of training gi and no gi, we usually train both, especially me, not as much, but before ADCC it was pretty much purely no gi. I do think they still complement each other, but I think it's also getting harder and harder to be a specialist at both. They're nearly becoming two different sports maybe, but I actually find that doing more no-gi helps my gi quite a lot. Obviously not with grips, but with scrambles and coming up and actually chasing the takedown or chasing a sweep, and makes your passing a lot tighter as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know. It's if you want to be an elite competitor and you're like, you can either be really extremely good, like so good that you're able to do like so much better than everyone that you can win the world in both gi and no gi. But if you're one of those competitors that's kind of sitting on the fringe of getting a medal, for example, then I think you're better off specializing in one to increase your chances at getting it in one of the two, as opposed to trying to do both.
Ricardo touched on it earlier on the show, but I wanted to follow up because I'm curious too. When did you start finding a lot of success with leg locks, and how early did you embrace them in your game?
Well, I mean, when I first started, so 17 years ago, mate, I was mostly watching UFC and just trying to copy the moves that I saw on there. And this was in the days where there was no, at least in Australia, like no one even knew anything about the world level championship events. It was just like you're doing jiu-jitsu. So like we did heel hooks and everything back then, but it was hardly a systematic approach to the leg locks, but I was introduced to it then, I guess. And then at some point I started getting more into like, the IBGF competitions, probably at about late purple towards brown belt. I started really following like what was going on internationally. And studying like the games that people were playing there. So that took me away from any sort of leg locks. And then I think probably 10 years ago, I did the ADCC trials it was in Melbourne, Australia. And so I had the ADCC trials then, and obviously being heel hooks being allowed, I thought, okay, I better learn some heel hooks. I'm pretty sure Ryan Hall had his original 50-50 DVD out then. So I bought that and studied and started playing some 50-50 then. In the lead up to that, I think I maybe got one or two heel hooks in that event. I ended up losing the final of the trials then to my current coach, actually. Sorry, not current, to like a guy who was coaching me at the time. And then probably went off leg locks for a while, back to IBGF.
There was like 2 years later, we didn't have the trials or something, or like no one knew about the trials. And it wasn't until 6 years ago or 7 years ago. Actually, I was cleaning up my phone on the plane and I found a video of Craig, you and me before the trials 6 years ago.
In Korea?
Yeah. We were drilling like really bad heel hooks, like kind of like 3 weeks before the trials. I think Craig was a purple belt and it was like, oh, we should learn this stuff. And it was like single leg X, a reap, like it was funny. I should find it.
Yeah. So, so probably, I mean, I won one or two matches in the the ADCC trial 6 years ago with heel hooks. So it's kind of just been a slowly evolving thing since then, I guess. I mean, I've had interest in it, and then obviously I think probably the point where I was like, oh, okay, there's a system people, up until then I was kind of like, oh yeah, you get single X and you kind of do an outside heel hook, and then I think when I first heard about Eddie Cummings and Gary Tonnen doing really well with leg locks, I was like, oh yeah, but like, have they beaten any of the top guys yet? That was my first thought. Like, but then seeing that EBI, which I think might have been like number 3 or 2, that Eddie Cummings won an EBI. Meow was in that event, but Meow lost in overtime in some other match. But I was like, oh, okay, like this, Eddie Cummings seems to have like a good system that he's using from here, and that's when I started paying a lot more attention to like trying to build like a particular style of leg locks as opposed to more opportunistic.
Before we move on to the Gaudio match, something I think that ties in well with what you're talking about there, because you talk about learning heel hooks. Since you're a school owner and an instructor and everything, and something I hear people debate a lot is, I'd like to know your opinion on when you start teaching heel hooks to your students. Is it something you wait until they're experienced? Is it something that you do to anyone in the no-gi class? Like when do you start teaching them?
I teach. We roll with them from blue belt and above. It's now pretty much assumed if you're a blue belt or above in no-gi that we used to have it, so you had to kind of check with your training partner beforehand that they're okay with doing heel hooks before you do it. But now it's pretty much assumed.
Now it's probably the opposite. If someone's getting ready for IBJJF Worlds or no-gi Worlds or whatever comp, then we go, can we do no heel hooks, please?
Yeah. But at white belt, I will, in our fundamentals class, like we have a curriculum that we follow. It's probably like once a year in that we'll have a week where we'll go over some of the heel hooks that they can't use yet, but just so that they learn what it feels like to do a heel hook and what it feels like to be heel hooked, and so on, just so that when they get to blue belt, they should be aware of what it is. My main issue is, like, I don't think many people in the gym, we've had very few, if any, injuries from heel hooks in the gym. I see them all the time in competition, like, because people, you're going to put it on fast, and your opponent's going to try and wait to tap a bit longer. But in training, I've seen very few injuries from it. What was I saying?
Blue belt and above, we teach them in classes. In our pro classes, I think everyone just kind of learns off each other as well. All the pro guys are doing a lot of their own study as well, and we brainstorm and learn together rather than in a class setting, I would say, with heel hooks more so.
Yeah, it's more like what we don't want is someone being heel hooked who doesn't know what a heel hook is. Yeah. After that, if they know what it is and they get heel hooked and they don't tap, then at least it's kind of their own fault. If they get injured, which is very rare, but whereas if you literally don't know what it is, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't hurt until something actually goes, and that would be a pretty bad scenario.
But yeah, just in general, we definitely spend way more time going through the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, and takes a very long time to learn how to pass the guard, or how to, we spend a lot of time at the moment with guard retention, making sure everyone has really good guards. And I used to actually think that heel hooks, you can learn it really quickly, passing the guard will take 10 years, but there's the heel hook system is actually really intricate, and there's a lot of details too, so it all takes time. But we do spend more time just with normal fundamental jiu-jitsu, I think.
Definitely.
Lachlan, another thing I want to ask you, you've mentioned it several times, you were watching the Meows, you were watching the UFC. How fundamental and important has learning from video been to your career? And I also know that you do a lot of teaching online as well. You have a really awesome YouTube channel and some other projects like that, some DVDs. How much has just watching people remotely impacted your game, and do you see that kind of being the future of the sport as a way to really improve everyone's game, the overall level of jiu-jitsu as a whole?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's hard. It's hard for to learn just from your. Well, I think you're limited, to be honest, if you're just learning from your coach, because they're going to have their particular game, and it's hard to. I mean, even in class, like I'll usually try to cover a more broad range of topics than more so than whereas it might be better for building someone in the class's game if we spent like 6 months doing like single leg X guard or something, but that would be boring and it might not be that relevant for everyone else in the class who doesn't play that game. So I think it is important I do believe that there's styles that suit your body type better. Obviously everyone can do anything, like even if you're a big overweight guy, you can do the berimbolo. You're not going to have as much success as if you were the same person with like flexible, flexible, nimble sort of movement. But you still can do everything. But there's techniques and moves that are going to be impacted more or less based on your body type. And being able to study and watch what people are doing internationally, you're much more likely to figure out something that fits you better. And it's also like, I think people will learn by getting confidence in their move. Like if you're at a gym where everyone plays, I'm going to use single leg X for example. Like if everyone plays single leg X guard, it's going to be really hard to like pick up that guard and have success in the gym because everyone's shutting it down pretty early and they know how to deal with it. So it's going to be like, obviously if you do spend the time, eventually you'll develop it, but it actually can be like I think for a lot of people it can be quite off-putting that everyone's shutting it down and making it really difficult because the defense to that guard is quite high, quite a high level at the gym where everyone plays it. Whereas if you were at that same gym and, for example, you chose to play half guard or the berimbolo, you might find like, hey, like people aren't used to dealing with this. I'm finding like good success and good angles with this, and you can kind of start to work your game and build confidence in it a lot quicker that way. So I do encourage people at our gym to kind of pursue different types of guards. But I do think you should first off try to get good at one. Don't try to get good at them all.
Awesome. I think we've got another clip here that we want to show from ADCC. This is with Patrick Gaudio. Of course, your second incredible submission. Go ahead and talk us through this one as well for Lachlan.
Yeah, so Gaudio actually had just received a penalty for passivity, or a warning. Sorry, not a penalty. So that's maybe a penalty. Does it look like he's got? Yeah, he's got a negative. He's got a 1 on the board.
Caleb, can you just keep looping this in the back there? Sorry. Go on, Lachlan.
Yeah, no, he does. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, so so he sat down for the footlock and tried to engage in the leg game, which I was obviously quite happy with. So I pulled his leg across into 50-50. He's turned, and I managed to dig the heel here and roll through to bridge into the finish. So yeah, so I went for that De La Riva. He's gone for the foot. And you see I'm holding his right leg. That's the one I want to retract my left leg if I can. Yeah, there we are. And then pull his right leg across. I think he tried to escape the position there, but I've managed to attach to the leg and draw it back in. So yeah, that was obviously there's me confused as to what's going on again.
Were you surprised that Patrick sat back for a leg lock? It seemed I was a little bit shocked that he would do that, given that you just.
I don't think he would have done that without that passivity call. Yeah, that I don't think. But yeah, so
he probably just wanted to end this match.
Yeah,
something that really impressed me. Well, before the leg lock here was it's not in the video, but there were some points where it looked like he was getting pretty close to passing your guard. He was getting you in bad spots, but you were still able to recompose on him. How did it feel dealing with someone? I mean, obviously Patrick's a super strong guy and also very good. How did it feel playing guard against him? Did he feel like what he looks like? Like how did it feel matching up with him, tying up with him?
To be honest, it's really hard. Like everything from ADCC is a little bit of a blur, so it's hard for me to remember like at the moment what I was thinking. I know like I'd had like 1 or 2 attempts to get to before this happened. Like I had 1 or 2 attempts to get to his legs, which kind of hadn't quite worked. But I felt like I'd had a little bit of a chance. I feel like and I'm working this a lot at the moment. I'm trying to work guard retention into leg entanglements, so like I find if someone's very passive, it's very hard to, like if they're just kind of sitting back, it can be quite hard to get into the leg entanglement. So I'm trying to work off like baiting people in a bit more, so where they feel like they've got an opportunity to pass and I've got a chance to use their forward momentum to actually pull them into a leg entanglement. So that's not necessarily what I was doing in this match. That's something I'm working on a bit more lately. But yeah, I mean, there was 1 or 2 points where he sort of cleared my legs for a moment and I had to frame and invert to recover. I'm not sure if we bring them up. Without looking at it, I probably can't remember. Sorry.
You're good at bowling up.
Yeah. Yeah, I can invert pretty well.
And there's some big guys at the gym, probably not the strength or size or skill level of these guys, but a bit of practice.
All right, Caleb, you want to cue up our next one then, the Muhammad Ali clip? So after that, you fought Gordon in the semifinals, but then you lost to Gordon. So you what a draw for you. You fight Kainan, you fight Gaudio, and then you get Gordon. So 3 easy matches for you to start it up, and then and then hold on, pause this real quick, Caleb. I remember talking to you before this, and then you didn't even know who you were going to fight for third place, because I was sort of like in the trenches with you, interviewing you after every match, and you go, oh man, who am I going to fight for third? And I was like, Muhammad Ali. You're like, oh shit. You're like, you got another one. So then, what are you thinking going out here for this Ali match? What do you at this point? You're going for an ADCC bronze medal in the absolute, which is pretty crazy.
That's what I was like. I was like, wow, I'm actually fighting for a bronze medal of ADCC. This is crazy. And I had the crowd behind me by now too. I think everyone was pretty excited. So yeah, I don't know. It was a really surreal feeling, but I was kind of nervous that I didn't want to get injured, but two, I wanted to, I was like, geez, if I just win this, I get a medal at ADCC. This is that was like my lifelong dream. So
yeah, and the absolute even. This is even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm sure your dream was probably getting a medal at 77 kilograms. You probably hadn't considered an absolute medal. But Caleb, you want to cue up that clip now? Here we go. This is a very gi type of guard, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this that De La Riva entry into it, I got that after rolling. I actually got that from a purple belt. I don't think he actually taught me it, but he did it on me like a few times. And then I was like, that might be good for my that might be good for my leg lock game. I was rolling in the gi with a purple belt. Who actually is from Sydney. His name's Lucas Kainan. He's a brown belt now. He's very good actually. But I was rolling with him, and I was trying to pass under his leg. Like he was playing De La Riva, I'd try and pass under his legs, and every time I go under the leg, he would go to that, what I'm calling shallow K guard. I don't know if he has a different name for it, but where you kind of underhook and drop your knee to the ground and foot to the outside of the knee. And he did that a few times on me, and then I was like, at some point, I was like, geez, that might work well to get to 50-50 for the heel hooks. So
there you go, Bear. You should do gi. It helps. Ricardo, it helps no gi.
Oh, definitely. Like, I think some things, if I can go off topic a bit, but some things that, like, I think if there was no gi, you wouldn't see the berimbolo being involved in no gi. Like you can berimbolo no gi. Obviously, it's a lot harder, but in the gi, you can kind of climb. So it's almost like, I'd see that as like training in the gi. You've got almost like training wheels on to practice berimbolo, where you can take these grips along the way, and you can use it in no gi, but it's a lot harder. But if you've never trained in the gi, I think you're going to struggle to. Yeah. It's going to be much harder to pick up the berimbolo without having practiced it in the gi first, I think. So there are some things like that, and some things vice versa, as well. Like I think for escapes, often it's easy.
I had a question for you.
Yep.
A question is like it seems like in specifically no-gi grappling that that in the past, like Japanese, Europeans, Americans, Aussies now like have seen a lot of success with like the leg locks per se. And
yep.
And you would think that the Brazilians have been killing the whole entire world with jiu-jitsu, and they're still killing everybody. What do you think it is between like different countries in general seeing a lot more success with the leg locks, as opposed to like all the current guys? Because if you look at the trend of all the ADCC champions over a period of time winning with leg locks, it's of course there are a lot of Brazilians as well that use them, and they've seen a lot of success. But it just seems like there's a common trend of different countries per se that are utilizing leg locks as an edge, because maybe they can't win in other areas because they don't have maybe the same technical skill ability that maybe other places have. Do you see any correlation to that, or any edges with leg locks, and even just different countries playing it a lot more, it seems?
Yeah, I definitely that was a huge factor for me, was especially like less so now, but maybe like 6 years ago, looking at when I first qualified for ADCC, for example, which is for ADCC Brazil. Like I was looking at, I fought Durinho first round, but looking at going up against someone like that at my skill level at that point, it made a lot of sense to try to find an area to work on that people tend to be weaker at, which is leg locks. Like if I'm going to beat Durinho, my chance of sweep, pass, submit in the standard format, it might be lower than getting to a leg entanglement and finishing from there. So that was definitely a factor. And obviously at the same time you work your whole game too. But I think that's probably why a lot of the international guys are focused on leg locks, because it's a way in to kind of try to level the playing field against someone who's maybe been competing at a higher level with the traditional jiu-jitsu sort of format for a longer time. Or that's my thoughts.
With countries,
well, I think any country outside Brazil, that's kind of been a relatively intelligent strategy to use. I mean, I think with leg locks, you've probably seen more high level guys lose to leg locks against someone they would normally beat than any other style of finish.
A topic that's come up a lot this week. Oh, sorry, Barry, go ahead.
No, I think just a general question. And Lachlan, do you think leg locks, if you were just rolling with any place, would you say that leg locks it's almost like it's like an ultimate equalizer, as far as like helping you with a heavier person, a stronger person, a more athletic person? It gives you a more level playing field versus a traditional grappler that just is kind of training 3 times a week with the gi in the gym, if you guys were just to roll no gi per se, or even gi.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I do think that. I think having going for leg locks is once I'm in a leg entanglement, like obviously if someone's strong, being stronger rarely works against you. I can't think of a case where being stronger wouldn't work against you, but I feel like someone's strength is not so much a factor in a leg entanglement, as opposed to like playing top bottom guard, trying to pass into side control and take the back and finish. I feel like strength is a much bigger factor there. Not that obviously you see plenty of examples of a smaller, weaker opponent beating a bigger opponent with the traditional jiu-jitsu style. That happens all the time, and it still obviously works. I do think leg entanglements are probably another
equalizer.
You
don't get squashed as much. I think, like for me, because I am a small female, rolling with guys. I mean, like realistically speaking, most guys that are blue and above will probably roll 40%, probably 10 for you. But when we get to 50-50 or leg entanglement, you have to obviously reduce the strength of your grips a little bit. But I feel like if I get the heel, I get the heel, and it's not like an armbar. You can just kind of bench press me or curl me. It will work. So it is like way more fun to, like with the bigger guys, to actually play this game, because I feel like they can get something out of it and I can as well, without just being completely squashed.
And probably a good example is right now we're in isolation, and one of the main things Liv and I are training together is like leg entanglements, because that's where we probably feel we get the most out of that. When I go on top and try to pass, I can kind of be heavy and squash.
Such a jerk.
I still haven't lost a round yet, by the way. No.
It's true.
Yeah, and even on bottom, like if I really don't like the position, I can often just like push and make space. Whereas in the leg entanglements, I feel like it's because your legs almost like, let's say 50-50, for example, like obviously your legs are entangled, so they can't do too much to like push and make distance, and your arms are kind of far away, like you're kind of like reaching like this, as opposed to like being chest to chest where you can really use your arms properly. So yeah, it's that's what we've been training a lot. So yeah,
a topic that's come up a lot. This go ahead, Ricardo. Uncle Ricky's jumping at the bit over there.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna, before I forget. It's not really a question. It was a pretty funny moment at ADCC. I don't know if you caught this, but you talk about the equalizer and how you beat two big guys. And I don't know if you caught this or not, but I was commentating and Gaudio was on the side of me, icing his knee. You know what I mean? He had a big ice pack, and then Ali comes off and he's like, "Oh, my knee's fucked." And they both looked at each other and they're like, "Shit." So it was just a really, really funny thing to see. Like, they both kind of looked at each other, man, same thing, same guy. Yeah. And, like you really shocked the world there. And I think like you kind of became like, like a top agent. I don't want to say free agent, but you became like a top prospect for a lot of pro events. So like I imagine after that, you must've been getting buzzes from everywhere to compete. And then you sort of took a break. What's going to be your plan if the whole coronavirus, if Thanos decides to snap us back here and we go back to the real world, what's your plan for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, I was hoping to get into some competition, some part of the second half of this year. I think I had some things that I wanted. First of all, like the lead up to ADCC and like the training camp and everything, I just felt like it was very full on, and I wanted a break from competing. It's been really nice just being able to work on parts of my game that I kind of just put to the side in the lead up to ADCC, because I thought, I know exactly my strategy, so I was kind of just training my strategy in the lead up to ADCC, and then to finish and be able to work some different things. So I've been working a lot on my guard retention. I want to kind of come in with a bit of different, something a bit different, and an improved version of myself, I guess. When I get back to competition, there's going to be more expectation on me now than before. So I've been working that, and obviously I'm just trying to make the most of the situation and doing a whole bunch of seminars and so on as well. So it's been hard to get the training that is required to prepare myself for some of the super fights. To be honest, like, my goals are set on ADCC 2021, and any super fights in that, to me, is just like a kind of practice in the lead up to that. I'd rather lose 1,000 super fights and win an ADCC than the other way around. So to me, they're not like huge priority, and often you have to travel. It's like I would only probably do it if I had like a good seminar tour scheduled around it as well. So like traveling all the way to the US or Europe just for a super fight I hate traveling, actually. So despite how much of it I've been doing, like I hate the act of traveling. When I'm in a place, I quite like it, but the actual airports and flights and all that is not so enjoyable. So but yeah, so I don't know. There's a bunch of people in my division from ADCC that I'd like to have matches with. Whether that's hopefully this Corona clears up and we can do that second half of the year, or even whether I meet them in ADCC, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Lachlan, I want to pivot a little bit here. It's been discussed a little bit since ADCC, but I don't know how widely known it is. But you actually have a doctorate in physiotherapy. Is that correct? I don't know if I'm butchering what that is. And you're a specialist in the areas of knee recovery and reconstruction. Is that also correct?
Yeah, like a certain type of knee pain. I did my thesis on rehabilitation of patellofemoral pain, which is like kneecap related issues. But yeah.
How well? I mean, you're very well informed on the anatomy of the knee. How much does that help you when you're trying to break down moves? I mean, do you look at it at that level? Does that fit into the way you think about jiu-jitsu, or not really? They're two separate things for you.
Yeah, it's actually kind of hard to tell, to be honest. Like, because probably, I mean, I graduated maybe 11 years ago or something from my undergraduate, and then so I've been working as a physio for a long time, and then I obviously finished my PhD maybe 3 years ago or so.
Something like that.
So it's kind of hard to like think of how I thought about jiu-jitsu before being a physio. I definitely like. I think when I'm applying the pressure for a heel hook, like I know what ligament I'm trying to attack, like where I want to be putting the pressure. I think you can work that out without being a physio. You know, like people are doing a pretty good job of working out how to break people's limbs without knowing anything about anatomy and physiology. So I'd say jiu-jitsu's done a fantastic job itself of just finding the weak points in our body in terms of leverage and so on. So it hasn't helped heaps with that, but I suppose like just understanding the exact direction to try to force things might help a little bit.
I think that, and also like motor learning and learning principles, and we cover a bit of that at uni as well, and maybe just communication when you're teaching, and having a more like sort of scientific approach where you explain why you're doing things. I think that's the physio degree maybe helped the most with that.
Yeah, I think actually probably one of the biggest things is it's somehow translated across, but like there's a huge focus on evidence-based practice in physio. So as you, I don't know if you've ever seen a physiotherapist or any
physical
sort of
therapist, I think
physical therapist, or but like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can see 10 different people and they'll give you 10 different opinions. So, which is obviously not good. There's probably a correct approach, and so it's really important to look to, and anyone can get their own ideas about what the right thing is, but it's really important to look at the available evidence, in terms of what scientific studies and papers have been done on the topic, and what does that say about the treatments that you're proposing for this person, or the assessment that you're doing, and so on. And I think applying that same mentality into jiu-jitsu would be like, for example, looking at the techniques people want to pursue, and then analyzing like, well, how common is this, and how effective is this at the elite level? Like, a classic one is if generally someone says, "Oh, can I, should I do this technique?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, where did you see it? Who have you seen use that technique?" And if it's something that you've never seen anyone internationally do, then I'd probably quite strongly recommend against it. Whereas if it's something, I guess the more common you see it, like let's say a knee through pass or kneecap pass, however you want to define it, you see so much of that in a high level, then that makes me say that's something you should work a lot, because it consistently works at the highest level.
Yeah, that was like when I did my analysis of the points, I think that was by far the number one pass at ADCC. It was a knee slide, knee cut, whatever you want to call it. But
Yep.
just sort of a goofy question for you here. After you went out and leg locked, you've talked a lot about seminars throughout this. You've been doing seminar tours. After you went out and you leg locked 3 of the best heavyweights in the world, how much more packed did those seminars get after that?
Yeah, a lot more packed. Yeah, it's been crazy, especially in the US. We had I think there was 117 people in
Austin.
In Austin, actually, when you guys were there. So that was
That's
my biggest
awesome,
so
yeah.
far.
117 people.
Hey, there's a lot of people getting beat up in the U.S. We need help. We need help with leg locks. Like.
Yeah. That's right. So it was it's been overwhelming, which is really good. Yeah.
And then you had a stroke of luck. I remember when I interviewed you after you finished the Absolute, you were like, "Oh, by the way, I have a heel hook instructionals coming out next week, so I'm sure that thing did all right as well."
Yeah, it's done pretty well. So that was funny. I think what's hilarious is I think because I had that, I'd finished filming my leg lock instructional, and it was, I knew it was, like, I'd already sent it. Well, it was almost ready to send through. I was just doing some editing, finishing off some editing, and then you interviewed me, and I was like, this is after I'd beaten Kainan. I was like, all right, this might be my only chance to give it a good shout out. Like, I've done a leg lock instruction, and I'm like, and then I went out and fought, and then I beat Gaudio, and then I'm like, and then you interviewed me again. I'm like, oh, what if this is the interview that they put up instead of the other ones? I said it again.
We were both on the same page. We did the same interview 3 times because both of us, I think, thought that might have been it every single time. We just basically redid it after every guy.
Yeah, and each time I was like, oh, this is probably the one they'll put up. I better put the leg lock in.
Hey, Lachlan, I had a question for you, just training in general. Like, you run a gym and you teach and you have students as well, but you've also traveled around the world to get some of the best training, probably like other people. But now it seems like Australia has like a little hub between like you smashing everybody this year in absolute and then Craig Jones shocking the world, in past years. Do you think it's like, is Australia kind of becoming like a little hub there where there's a good group of guys? It's kind of becoming like a little mini Cicero Costa type project school where there's like a good group. And what's next for the Aussies? First it was like Elvis and Parash, now it's you and Craig Jones. What's in the water over there? What's happening?
Who's coming through next? I mean, we've already got Livia as well, who's killing it.
True.
It's actually sad. He's in Sydney when he's in Australia, so we haven't actually really been able to train together much. Which we're like pretty much the same weight and everything. So I'll have to try and get up and get some rolls with him, or vice versa. But look, we've got a bunch of what we would say full timers here in Melbourne, and some people that have moved from across Australia to come and train with us. So if I start saying names, I'll probably forget people, which will be a problem. But there's guys like Jeremy Skinner, who's been competing on some of the big shows. The guy Ariel Tabak. I've been working a lot of my guard retention with Ari, and Ari, he's a black belt. He's actually representing Cicero Costa at the moment. He's fantastic, really, really good, excellent guard. I think he's someone to pay attention to. We've got guys like, we've got Mikhail, we've got Ben Hodgkinson, we've got Hope. Hope's been she won a few grand slams. So.
Yeah, she won the Tokyo Grand Slam, and she's probably one of main training partners, and she's an absolute beast as well. So her guard retention, and she's someone to watch at black belt.
Sarah and Chi doing well. Brooke, we've got a few younger people coming up as well. So
blue belts that are blue purple belts that are giving me a really tough time, which is awesome. That's what we always wanted, and even with, I'm gonna abduct this a little bit, but we do have 20, 25 girls on the mat most nights as well. Sometimes there's less, and they're just absolutely killing it as well at every belt level as well. So it's really cool. They're teaching as well. We'll like in leadership roles and teaching classes, not just women's classes. So it's really great.
You know what? I think it's
Australia also has one of the top up-and-coming internet trolls in the game for runes out there.
We've also got another troll, Luke Beston, as well. So we've got two of the best internet trolls.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, how popular is jiu-jitsu in Australia? I mean, I know it's a huge freaking country, but would you say it's gaining momentum? It's pretty ubiquitous here in the United States. It's everywhere. It's the same out there?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's still huge. I think I feel like when the US people, like if you go, I do jiu-jitsu, people know what it is. Like just most people will know on the street. I don't know that it's quite like that in Australia just yet, but people who know, like who at least watch the UFC or know martial arts definitely know. And most schools are packed now, which is amazing. I think ever since maybe we lifted the ban of cages being legal, especially in Victoria, in our state, and like UFC became popular, more people were watching live, then the schools started filling up a little bit more as well.
Yeah, it's definitely getting more popular. I mean, I think we've got bigger schools bigger attendances than most of the, like each night at our, each night we have 3 classes, each with around 60 to 70 people on each class. So it's pretty busy. Well, we don't right now because we're shut. Yeah.
Hey, Lachlan, I had a question for you. You kind of got ahead of the curve when the leg lock game came out. It obviously became a big trend in the last few years. What do you kind of see as being the next big trend in Nogi Jiu-Jitsu or Nogi grappling? And are you planning to get ahead of that as well, or what do you kind of foresee being like the next trend? What's your take on that?
Training with a gi.
The answer is if I knew, I would be a world champion.
That's a good answer.
I think I have some. I think I see a lot more of the K guard that I'm playing being used, and people playing a bit more outside foot positioning. That's what I personally see happening from guard a bit more. There's some other, I think different people will develop different games. There's a chance that I know from what I hear, it's definitely not what I'm focused on at the moment. I focused a lot on wrestling, but I know a lot of the guys, for example, in New York are working trying to come up and wrestle from guard, which actually used to be more my style. I used to sit forward and really come in for the single leg and so on, which is to me is obviously it's a good offensive way to play, but there's higher risks of counter attacks like guillotines and so on as well. So, but obviously you can try to work strategies around that. I think in an ADCC, for example, which is I suppose the pinnacle of no-gi, I suspect just people being better at wrestling and scrambles and back takes is going to be the main thing. And then, I imagine there's probably going to be more people playing 50-50 and so on for leg entanglements. But it's going to be more of the same. I think the wrestling aspect is going to be continue to be one of the defining factors in who wins in ADCC, and people are going to try and get better at that if they want to win.
Okay, and I got one more question, my final one, I promise. But I'm actually calling from Ontario, Canada. I don't know, and so here in the province of Ontario, heel hooks are illegal in competitions here. They're banned
Weak-ass
because
Ontario.
the explanation that we get told is that the insurance people that insure competitions here know the difference between the leg locks. It's dangerous. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's all bullshit. But anyways, for real, they are banned here. So what is your advice to guys that want to practice no-gi and they don't have the avenue to compete in events that have heel hooks, but they want to get proficient?
Don't train in Canada. Don't train in Canada.
Well, listen, not everyone has, the 5-star show your role sponsorship like I do, but so some people have to stay here. They have to stay here. So seriously though, what kind of advice would you give guys that want to get proficient, but they just can't compete with those rule set?
Heel hook white belts, I think, would be my answer. Yeah.
Good question.
Can they train with it? Or
yeah, they can.
You can train with it. I mean, I'd say just travel to do the comps. Travel. How far is it to get down to another province? I don't know. That's all I'd say, because otherwise, or move. But I'd say I don't think you have to compete. I don't think you have to compete every weekend to improve. Even if it's a couple of times a year, if you can make a trip out to get to a comp where you get to practice it. But I mean, most of your learning's done in the gym, or pretty much all of your learning's done in the gym. The comp's just competing is just a way to kind of test what under pressure, test what you know, and kind of see how confident you are in what you know in a live setting. Because especially something like leg locks, I know a lot of people might be using them in a gym, and then when they get into a comp where they're actually now facing a situation where their opponent's going to try and rip their leg off, they might start behaving quite differently. So I think it's important to try it out in competition, but I don't think it has to be extremely regularly.
Lachlan, just tell them to buy the Lachlan Giles DVD. Go to your website, That's how the people in Canada are going to learn leg locks. That's the best way.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's amazing that the government actually stepped in and said no heel hook. I'm surprised they even know what jiu-jitsu tournaments are. But
Wow.
Well, the government.
Yeah.
What happened was the government put an organization in charge of running tournaments here. I wouldn't say the government put them. These guys stepped up to work with the government, and the people that are in charge of that organization, they're like, oh no, heel hooks are too dangerous, and they claim that the insurance people know the difference and all this. It's just a bunch of bullshit. But we just can't do it here. No tournaments can have heel hooks. It blows my mind.
All right, I think we should get ready to wrap it here. Lachlan, thank you very much for calling in.
And Livia.
Yeah, Lachlan and Livia. Yeah, sorry. Happy Friday night to everybody out there listening. Happy good morning to you guys in Australia. It's actually Saturday morning there, correct? It's Friday night here.
Yeah, it is.
Ricardo, thanks for calling in from Canada. Bear, you too. Lachlan, you got anything? Lachlan and Livia, you guys got anything to say to your fans on the way out? Oh, bye, Lachlan.
He's like, I'll see you guys later.
Check this out.
By the way,
nice. Got the FloGrappling Award. Very cool.
Yeah, I got my FloGrappling Award in the mail. So
thanks everyone for voting. That's it's pretty surreal.
Thanks everyone for voting. Thanks to my fans. Thanks for having me on.
We'll keep you guys entertained with our amazing quarantine life in the next few weeks, no doubt.
Yeah.
How many more days?
If you want to follow us on
10, I don't know.
10 more days.
But probably by the time we come out, the whole country will be in lockdown. So
yeah,
maybe months. Nobody knows.
Sorry, I cut you off, Lachlan. What were you saying about where they can follow you?
So I've got a YouTube. Well, obviously I've got Facebook and Instagram, and I've got a YouTube channel as well. Absolute MMA St. Kilda. If you want to follow that, we're trying to put out like something each day, some sort of content. Some of the home training we're doing and so on as well. So if you can follow that, obviously I've got a bunch of if you're stuck at home and want to work on your leg locks, then we've got a bunch of instructionals, or not just leg locks, a bunch of different parts of your jiu-jitsu.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for calling in, and stay safe out there. That goes for you guys watching at home as well. And we'll be back next week with another stacked calendar of shows. Every day of the week is filled. We'll keep you posted on Instagram, Facebook, and everywhere else. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on the next show of Who's Number One.
Thanks so much.